So in Roses, what happened is Oryx and the kids finally arrive to the town, and they find out that they're supposed to sell these roses. And this is going well for Oryx just because everyone loves her and they'll constantly buy from her. But Uncle N warns them and says that they're not to go with any men that try to take them into a hotel or anything, or to take their hand, just to say no. But this rule is not applied to Oryx because Uncle N saw a better market he can do with that and make a better scam to catch men and acts trying to do stuff to Oryx before anything bad happens. He'll stop. But that's basically his new scam and new way of income. In Pixie and Jazz, this is when Oryx tells us that she found out that Uncle N was murdered, and this made her really emotional and distraught and made her cry when she found out this news. And now that the rose selling business is now over, a new man steps up and divides the kids. And now Oryx is shipped off to now do porn movies. So now she's there, and while she's there, she meets Jack, who is the producer of these movies. And it's her way of, she uses him to help her learn English by doing sexual favors. The setting for these two sections is still in the past because Jimmy is still being presented as the character talking and Snowman isn't there. It's also pre-apocalyptic because we haven't seen the big flood or anything yet. But it's mainly taking in Oryx's past because we're seeing what's happening or what happened in her childhood. The tone and style for these two sections, they're basically the same. We see that one side is very dark and grim because we're hearing this awful story that has happened to Oryx and what she had to grow up with and just terrible events that came about with it. But then there's also the very happy, mellow, and optimistic tone to it because when Oryx is retelling all these things that have happened to her, like she had to do these porn movies, she had to be taken away from her family. She says it from like a calm manner, and it's not like she regrets it. She's like, this is what happened, and like she's accepted and she's moved on. Focusing on just Uncle N, we see that he demonstrates the characteristics of a scammer, con artist, and someone very greedy. Just because he'll do anything to get what it takes to get him that money. Scamming people, he'll do it. He'll do any trick he can to get past anyone to make sure he gets it. He takes the nicest kids from the village. He makes sure he can get across the gates with the guards saying this is like family, relatives. He does what he has to do. And when opportunity arises for him to get more, his eyes light up dollar signs. And we see this especially with Oryx because she was a special girl and she was very pretty and everything. So when she approached him saying this man wanted her to come with him, he's like, he'll forget about his own rule because he saw more potential in her in the new market. So he would use her and put her in these situations where she could have almost got raped. And when he walked in, he'd make these men feel shame, but he's not going there to teach them a lesson. Don't do this, men. Like, don't. He's going there to scam them and use their emotions against them to get more money for himself. So, because he knows they don't want to get in trouble. And also he shows someone with high authority and a boss-like figure. And this is very funny, this characteristic, because it's kind of paralleling to Snowman, because on page 128 he says everyone doesn't want to disobey him, and Uncle N talks to a watch, again putting to his ear to a voice that apparently knows everything. And the children see this. But this parallels Snowman because he does the exact same thing, but instead on his watch he's listening to his Crake and the Crakers are looking up to him. So that was an interesting parallel. He's also very strategical because in the book at page 128 it says that Oryx said that Uncle N really knew his business because children would believe other children about punishment more readily than they would believe in adults. And this is smart and well thought out on Uncle N's side because kids are going to listen to them like other kids because they know they can trust them, same age and everything. And what these adults are, they're the ones they're all talk. You're not seeing it. The kids are the ones experiencing it, and you're going to listen to what they've experienced more than what an adult could tell you what happened. So he was strategically putting fear and his authority into these children. Finally, Uncle N also demonstrates a father figure because he's basically all that Oryx knows as another family and what she considered love, because he's the one that honestly gave the most to her during that time because she saw her brother left her. She left her family. She has vague memories of her mom. So he's basically replacing a father she never had and someone who kind of cares for her and who'd always be there, because even when these men were taking her away, she always knew that he was going to come and get her. Like, it's kind of like that, you know, your parents are always there for you, but instead it's her dad because that's who he was to her. Okay, themes that happen in this section is, first off, we see the theme of survival. We see this appear a lot just because it's all about staying where you want to be in this society and get the best you can, well, in their circumstances of Oryx, because like her brother, you don't want to not miss the quota because then they won't see a use for you and you are at risk to be shipped somewhere maybe even worse than what you have now, when he was at risk of being sent to being a melon bum. So it's very important to do what you have to do to stay there. Like, Oryx just accepted that. She did what she was told if someone tried to approach her, she did. And then she did more just for everything works, and then she can benefit out of it too, because now she has a new game with bringing men in. Also, there's the theme of deception because we see this a lot with Uncle N, because he's warping a lot of things, like especially when he tries to catch these men, because he's not going for a way of teaching them a lesson. He's going there strictly for money, and he's trying to make them perceive like he's this great guy he's saving this little girl, but in reality he's just a scammer trying to make more money off them. Another theme is there's no free will, and what I mean by that, it's kind of like the big brother concept happening, because you're always being watched no matter where you go. Like when they first got dropped off, they got to go around the city by themselves, but they were never really alone because Uncle N was always watching them somehow. And it's like the big brother. Big brother's always watching you, and they always said even when he's not around, he is always watching you to see if you're trying to steal, run away, all of that. Finally, beauty is a big theme here, because without beauty, you can't get anywhere. Just like Oryx's brother, he ran away because he was gonna get shipped off because he lacked the aesthetics that people wanted to look at, and they wouldn't go near him to buy flowers. And instead, because Oryx is she had that cute smile, little girl appeal, everyone was buying more flowers off her because she had the beauty and what people wanted. So that also kind of ties in with survival, because beauty is what you needed to survive in these circumstances. Okay, so now looking at the characters of Jimmy and Oryx, focusing on Jimmy, we see that he's a character that is very easily angered because he takes things so seriously. And by that I mean he gets very protective over Oryx because she's seen what she's grown up with and these terrible events, but she takes them so lightly it angers him almost, that it's such an easy thing for her to just brush off, like it was nothing of a big deal. And this angers him because he wants to go and beat up everyone that harmed her in her life. He wants to be that protective, almost like boyfriend, that he wants to help this girl he's in love with. He wants to do everything he can to help her. So this is really the big aspects of Jimmy in this chapter. Okay, so now looking at Oryx's character, we see she's a very optimistic and laid back character, because when she's talking about this very traumatic past, which most people would be very emotional bringing up a story that tragic, she was a child taken away from her family, then she's now in sexual movies, things like that. It's very traumatic for a person, but she's very calm about it. she takes it as like an experience for herself and all these opportunities that opened up for her. She got to learn English, live in a big city, have a better life from her poor family, and she always sees it as good things. We also see she's very sarcastic, especially with Jimmy when he asks questions, because he would think, oh, wouldn't you be angry at this? Like, why are you letting him do it? But her response would be like, oh, it's nothing that we haven't done, like, as if it meant, like, nothing to her. So that's very ironic and funny. And also, I find she's a bit protective, because when Jimmy asks questions, like, trying to find out her locations for various questions, she answers them, but not fully. Like, he found out there's canals there, and then he's like, oh, so was there a lot of canals where you're from? She's like, yes, but every city has canals. So I think she's protecting him from trying to, like, hunt people that have affected her life, because she knows he's very, like, easily angered. So that just shows how much she knows Jimmy and wants to help him. So now the themes in this section. Now, a theme that pops up is love, because it's basically the love that Oryx and Jimmy have towards one another, but it's through the protection that they feel for each other, because while telling her story, she's trying to protect him from not saying, she says everything but somehow leaves a little bit out of, like, certain specifics, and she says it's never important to know, but she's protecting him because she doesn't want him to get so invested in these past events or try to take revenge for her, and she's accepted it. But on the other hand, his love for her is to be that person that saves her, like that knight in shining armor, like saving her from this dark past and to fix everything, and that's what he wants to do. And now another theme is confusion, because as a reader, it's hard to say with Oryx, like, what or her intents really are. We can assume that she's doing it in protection of Jimmy, but why wouldn't she want to just say it to let us know? And it leaves him constantly confused because he's not sure what she wants. Like, he asks one question and it gives him 10 million more. So that's a huge theme there. And also the parent and child bond, because we see that there's another side to the characters that even though Oryx doesn't seem she'd be the emotional type, she seemed to have, like, a parental bond with Uncle, and when she found out he died, and that caused a lot of impact in her life because she was very distraught. Like, that was her last chance. So yeah, those are just some of the main themes that were in this section.